Hi beautiful souls, it's Trine back here again on this Astrology, Human Design and Gene Keys channel for you. And today we're going to be talking about Venus aspecting Pluto in the natal chart, in the astrological natal chart, and what that's all about. If you haven't seen my introduction video of Pluto, I highly recommend that you check, and Venus as well, I highly recommend that you check out both of those videos first. I'll leave a link up above in the description box below, so you can kind of get a holistic understanding of how I interpret Venus and Pluto, and then you can come back to this video. But to briefly summarize, when Venus and Pluto are coming together, the main themes that we're going to have extracted out of a person's life is going to be around money, self-worth, and money in this case is not about money that's made from your career, like if you had Sun Pluto aspecting each other. This is going to be money that comes from other people, because that's what Pluto rules, other people's resources, and Venus is money. So how do you use other people's money? How does that impact you in your life? And also other people's resources that brings you self-worth, self-esteem, Venus. There's a sensual undertone behind Venus-Pluto aspects, because Venus does represent sensuality, seductiveness, both biologically man, biologically woman, straight and gay. And Pluto is going to be the higher octave of Mars, so it's going to be about sex, but it's a different kind of sex from Mars. It's the sex that is transformative. There's a certain amount of darkness involved there, psychological, sexual undertone behind Pluto. I've been watching this Netflix series, I don't know if you guys watch it. It's called Ginny and Georgia, about mother-daughter relationship. Ginny is the daughter, Georgia is the mother. And as I was watching that series, I was thinking to myself, like, wow, there's a lot of Venus-Pluto going on here between, with both Ginny and Georgia in their own lives. They definitely have like Venus-Pluto aspects going on in their natal chart. That's like what I was thinking and feeling there. And I feel like Georgia, the mother, has more of a Venus conjunct Pluto kind of a vibe going on with her, whereas the daughter, Ginny, she has more of this Venus inconjunct Pluto or Venus opposite Pluto kind of a vibe going on. So the general themes behind Venus-Pluto aspects based on the psyche of a person who has this is going to mainly be revolving around how to build up their self-worth or their self-esteem through sex, intimacy, and other people's resources. That's the main idea here, is about self-esteem, self-worth, which is Venus. So generally, when we have a Venus-Pluto aspect, and this also goes for the quintile and biquintile as well, all aspects between Venus and Pluto, easy, hard, there is a certain amount of, we can say, like a lower self-esteem or self-worth, and a feeling like a journey in life to search for things to strengthen your sense of self-worth. And self-worth can be interpreted as how much you value yourself, your body, your energy, your beauty, both men and women, your physical attractiveness, your soul, your skills, your talents, everything that's a complete part of you. Like, how much do you think that is going to be worth in exchange? Because worth and value is about this exchange that happens. What is that worth in exchange for something else outside of yourself? So for example, if you created a piece of writing, let's say, how much are you going to sell that writing for? The price that you charge for that is going to represent how much you value yourself. So that's an example of this. Okay, so we're going to start off first by looking at the Venus conjunct Pluto then. So when we have Venus in a conjunction with Pluto, this has to be, I usually look at it as being in the same sign. The orbs are going to matter if it's closer, like if Venus is at 5 degrees of Scorpio and Pluto is at 6 degrees of Scorpio, that's very tight. That's going to be different from if Venus was at 5 degrees of Scorpio and Pluto was, let's say, at 13 degrees of Scorpio. That can still be considered a conjunction, but it's a looser conjunction. It's going to have less of an intensity to it. Conjunctions mean that the two planets involved are very similar, they're gonna blend together. So when we have Venus blending together, there's not gonna be a lot of consciousness or awareness with regards to how you are using other people, especially in close, intimate relationships, to make you feel or bump up your sense of self-worth. There's very little awareness because the person who has it tends to feel like doing that is okay. But you have to understand that self-worth is self-worth. It's the self. It's not, I mean, Venus-Pluto aspects, right? They're gonna turn the self-worth into how much do you validate my self-worth? And that is going to be very strong with the Venus conjunct Pluto is how much do you show me that I am worthy? How much do you show me that I have my own, how much do you validate my sense of self? And so when you have this, you can get yourself into relationship patterns that are very intense. They have a certain amount of obsessiveness to them. There's a certain amount of, wanting to possess the other, wanting to merge souls with the other. Yes, you want to make sure that you can get under someone's skin and merge souls completely. Because when you find that type of a relationship, the underlying motivation there is that I am worthy of love. I am worthy of this closeness, this intimacy. You see how that works, right? So deep attachment is associated with love for somebody who has a Venus conjunct Pluto. But love and attachment is not the same. Love and obsession is not the same. Love and possessiveness is not the same. You want love, but you also want to increase your self-worth. You also want to have a strong sense of self-worth. And you are mixing them up to think that they are somehow like have to be linked. Do you know what I mean? You tend to feel, if you have this aspect, that the more loved you are, the more you are worthy, and you go about that in an unhealthy way. So what we can see happening is that when the partner of the Venus conjunct Pluto person kind of steers their attention into other areas of life, maybe other people, friends, career, the Venus conjunct Pluto person can feel that it is okay to cause drama or to stir or to be possessive of their partner, to cause a certain amount of jealousy or fights to happen in a relationship because you feel that, let's say, when you fight with someone and they are willing to work through it with you, you feel like that means you are worthy. If you fight with them and, there's this tug of war, this intensity, this push and pull, and the person still doesn't leave you because you are attractive and you are sensual and sexual and you have a certain amount of attractiveness, so you can still somehow use that to make sure the person is, still around. That means you must be worthy, you must be valuable. Okay, that's how the psychology works here. And also, like, if your partner, is, let's say, talking to other people in a when your boyfriend or your girlfriend is talking to another person and you get possessive and jealous, and through that possessiveness and jealousy, you're testing or challenging your partner with regards to trust, and you may dress in a sexier way to make sure that the partner turns their attention back to you as a form of being possessive, something like that, and your partner still stays with you and chooses you over the other, you feel more valuable and worthy. This is the psychology behind it. Money is another theme here. So if your partner could give you money, give you resources, or you could be the one to give money or resources to the other, sometimes it's an abuse of resources that happens as well, meaning it's too much and one person is sucked dry of their wallet and, you know, there's no returning of the money. That must mean that you are worthy. That's the psychology behind it as well. Forms of entrapment can be associated with love when it comes to Venus conjunct Pluto. And because it's a conjunction, the Venus conjunct Pluto person can be kind of hard to deal with because they can feel like this is the way to look at love. This is the way to look at relationships. There's not a lot of awareness there as to why somebody else would think differently in this respect. But you have to see the underlying motivation behind it regarding your self-worth. Love is about giving. Love is not about taking to feel worthy. Love is freedom. Love is patient. Love is kindness. Love is giving. Obsession, the adrenaline rush of the drama, the possessiveness, that's not love. And so to work with the Venus conjunct Pluto aspect, you have to realize that you have to be able to find out what you're worth. What do you value about yourself? Where is the deep, deep, deep sense of self-worth coming from? And you know, when I look at Georgia, from Ginny and Georgia, as Georgia having a Venus conjunct Pluto, you can see that this woman is very attractive. She can wrap men around her fingers just because of the way that she is, just her strength, you know, her magnetism, everything that is within her. Like you can't, you know, you may not be able to pinpoint what exactly it is about her, but she catches attention. She's magnetic. She already has it within her. And definitely a part of that is going to be about her understanding the darker things of life, the darker things of love, the power games that happens in love. But of course, not saying that Georgia is operating at the healthiest of the Venus conjunct Pluto aspect that we've got here, but she is an archetype of that she understands the power games that happens in relationship. And if she could take the higher route, you see what I mean? If she, because I feel that she doesn't yet have that self-worth part of her very solidified yet, where like she's in a relationship with a mayor, right? And there's this one scene where she wants to break up with him, but then he says to her that, you know, you want it as well. You want the power that we can have as a couple. You want everything that, you know, the money, the power, the fame, that we can have as a couple. And that is okay to have as her sense of self-worth, if you see what I mean here. Like, that is a deeper, darker part of her that all her life she was challenging the men in her life to get power over them. But the truth is she always has the power within her. She's like a super persuasive woman. Like she's got a lot of potential. But throughout her life, her potentials are being tested to see how much she can use that to overpower the men in her life. When the reality is, even if she's never had to challenge the men in her life, she can still make it on her own. And she has to be able to see how powerful she is just on her own, if that kind of made sense. And so, what is it about you, Venus conjunct Pluto people, that is so worthy, so powerful? A part of that is going to be your magnetism, your attractiveness, your sexual aura and energy. You have to make that conscious, you know? Take that desire nature that you have inwards. Desire yourself. Give yourself the pleasure that you need, that you desire, the Venusian pleasures that comes with any form of darkness that you may want for yourself. Like, for example, in the case of Georgia, that power that she, you know, she's turning it outwards and she's looking to men and then she wants to overpower them to make sure that she is feeling powerful, but like she could just do that on her own, you know what I mean? So you would make, with a Venus conjunct Pluto person, somebody who is very insightful with regards to the needs of other people, the sexual desires of other people and what they want. And that's a gift to have, because this is about depth, and this is about caring for the desires of the other. You can be intense in a relationship in a good way, not in the way of stirring up drama and possessiveness and that kind of intensity, but in the intensity of, hey, I really want to know you, and I can cater to your deeper desires of all types, but hey, if you need space from time to time, if we need to have room to breathe, if you need to have friends and focus on your own thing, I'm also understanding of that desire within you as well. Because desires of other people is not going to always be desire to be with you, but it's going to also be desire to sometimes do their own thing, and that's a desire that you have an ability to also understand deeply in others. Loyalty is a gift of Venus conjunct Pluto aspects. In all signs, there's a certain amount of loyalty, being honest, being truthful. And sometimes that means being vulnerable to sharing your own love natures. So instead of playing games and stirring drama with your partner, you can say to them, hey, I'm feeling insecure when you are with this other person. I don't know why. There's probably something in my own past and about my own self-worth that is making me insecure. That openness, that honesty is much sexier than the manipulation or the mysteriousness that you're trying to stir up. Yes, so that's going to be sort of like my little summary of Venus conjunct Pluto. So next up, we're going to go into Venus opposite Pluto in the natal chart and what that's all about. So Venus opposite Pluto in the natal chart is very relational. I mean, Venus is already the planet of relationships, and oppositions bring a certain amount of self-awareness to the person through relating with others and going through themes of projection, and then turning that back onto the self and then saying, I'm projecting something onto the other, something that I'm repressing within myself, and so therefore I can embody it now and become whole. So with Venus opposite Pluto, there's something a little bit off here with regards to the way that your self-worth and self-esteem and the things that you value has been built up. So the values here makes it feel for you as if things surrounding, love triangles, affairs, secret relationships, abuse in relationships, there's something about these darker parts of a relationship that you feel subconsciously, the pain that comes with that, you want to actually explore. You may not realize this, but there's something there. Like notice if, notice if you're in a relationship and then there's another person that comes into your life and they what's the word I'm looking for? Like they give you attention, and you find the secret attention to be something that makes you feel more worthy than open and honest attention that you were already getting from the partner that you had. That, this kind of situation is sometimes what leads to like affairs, right? There's something about your value system that thinks that makes you worthy. And so you're gonna dive into situations surrounding relationships that brings you a certain amount of pain. Unavailable partners, secretly, being involved with unavailable partners as a way of wanting to avoid the real intimacy and the real depth that you could have with that one partner that you were building a relationship with because of the vulnerability, because of the real hurt and the real pain, is something that we see here. But then eventually you still hurt other people, or you will still feel the pain anyways because you're choosing an unavailable partner who can leave you at any time anyway. So in either situations, the pain is going to come in a relationship even if you are trying to avoid it, because subconsciously your love nature wants you to feel again, and whatever path you choose, it will still get you there. You will still have to feel the pain that's going to come through relationships. Ultimately, what ends up happening with the Venus opposite Pluto people is that they end up feeling, like if you have this, feeling like at some point in your life, after going through several or maybe a few painful experiences in love, you begin to feel like you have abandoned yourself. You have abandoned the love for yourself. This is when awareness kicks in. So for example, when you choose a partner who is unavailable, when you're already in let's say a pretty solid relationship, but you're going for another partner who seems unavailable to you so that you can feel more desired, more worthy in that secret, relating that, wow, if someone could love me and could be sexually attracted to me, even when they have to risk doing it in secret, that I am more value or worthy. Or sometimes it can be something along the lines of like choosing a partner who is dark, that you can sense a certain amount of darkness within them, but still feel like you should go for it, because if the two of you can get through this darkness in a relationship together, it would prove that there's more love existing there, that you will feel more worthy and loved in that relationship. But then you end up getting into abusive relationships, physical abuse, financial abuse and things like that, being abused by that partner. At a certain point, okay, because this is an opposition, at a certain point, you begin to feel like, wow, if I had really loved myself, I would have never done that. Does this mean that I don't love myself? When a Venus opposite Pluto person realizes this, they begin to go through a journey of building on their self-love again. They begin to go on a journey of really working with how to value the self and how to love the self again, by seeing how they were the one, you were the one who had gotten yourself into these types of self-esteem damaging kinds of relationships, so that you can come back. It's like a boomerang, like you go out and you come back to build your self-worth again. Hope it's kind of making sense. Getting into self-pleasure, whatever self-pleasure means for you, without the other is going to be very important for having a Venus opposite Pluto. So anything that brings you pleasure, being able to do that alone and by yourself and igniting that again is going to be super, super important, so that you don't have to rely on others to bring pleasure, which then comes with pain in a relationship. But that's okay. Like, you're going to have a really enriched understanding of pleasure and pain and how that comes together and how that enriches your life, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it anymore at the expense of your own sense of self-love. Just like the Venus conjunct Pluto, this is a very magnetic, very sexy, alluring, seductive placement to have, and there is something to be said, something to be valued about that type of an energy and aura. Once the Venus-Pluto person has worked through their sense of self-love and self-value, there's a really it can make it really sexy with regards to how much you value yourself. If you start following a passion that you love, and then you say, hey, I'm going to charge this money for it because I know that this creation that I've made is worth that amount of money, that is very sexy. When that self-love is solid and that self-love is so strong and you feel super worthy and super valued by valuing yourself in that way, you can begin to build real, solid, deep, intimate relationships with others in a way that you have been desiring all along. Just with one loyal partner, there's openness, there's honesty that exists there, which is very, very sexy. Okay, next we're going to move on to the Venus square Pluto. So the square causes an internal conflict or an internal tension that happens inside the person who has it. So if you have the square, the moment that you're entering into a relationship with the other, it kind of prevents you from actually having the closeness and the intimacy that could actually happen in a relationship, which is different from the opposition or the conjunction that we talked about, where there is that intimacy happening, but it's not in the healthiest way possible. The square kind of stops it before it actually happens, because what it does is that the person who has a Venus square Pluto bases their self-worth and their self-esteem on how much the other person can prove to the Venus square Pluto person that other person is going to do things that is at the level of the standard of the Venus square Pluto, if that kind of made sense. So the Venus square Pluto person thinks, usually, consciously, that their high standards in a relationship is a result of them actually, you know, valuing themselves a lot and having a lot of sense of self-worth. But it's a little bit of an illusion, because if you really valued yourself a lot and you really loved yourself, and there's a high self-worth there is no need to test the other to see how much they're going to match up to your sense of self-worth, if you see what I mean. The fact that you are testing them or wanting them to prove how much they're going to be worth your self-worth means that you are still figuring out your self-worth and your self-esteem. An example of this is going to be, let's say that you feel your self-worth lies in, you know, your ability to live a creative, artistic life, let's say. So the moment you're in a relationship with someone, you are already going to feel like, is this person going to be living or having a mindset that they can also live a creative, artistic life or not? Because if they don't display that, if I'm in a relationship with them, that's going to make me feel that I don't have that self-esteem or self-worth there, because if I really valued my artistic, creative life, then I shouldn't be with that person. Do you see what I mean? So, you know, Venus square Pluto person can do various different things that makes relationships a little bit like a combative war zone. So, for example, you know, they may start looking up the natal chart of that particular partner to see if they are artistic and creative enough for them. They may start, you know, talking to their families and friends to see what this person is all about. They may start to ask a little bit of questions and get a little bit investigative to get there. And the partner can usually, you know, feel that something is amiss with the Venus square Pluto person. There's something there that they're not quite sure what it is, but it doesn't feel like there's real trust there. Because the thing about self-worth is that you have to value it yourself. Then the other person's going to have their own self-worth. It doesn't have to be the same as you, but at the same time, they have to value you. And the way that another person is going to value you is dependent on them. It doesn't have to resonate with how you value yourself. So for example, if you value living an artistic, creative life, but that person values you as being a caring, loving partner and a really great caretaker, that's how they're going to value you. And you have to appreciate that and not say, whoa, but that's not how I value myself. And so if you're valuing me that way, then that means that, well, what is it about me that is going to be worth valuing, or what is worthy about me then? Because if your sense of values and self-worth is really solid within yourself, you're going to be okay with the way that another person loves you and values you. And so you don't have to test that. You have to trust that that is the way that they are going to love you, that they're going to value you. So I hope that's kind of making sense. And there can also be this sense of like wanting to make sure that the other person adds to their self-esteem as well. If the other partner is also living an artistic, creative life, that it makes the Venus square Pluto person feels like, oh, this is going to enforce what I already know is worthy about myself. So it's coming along the same lines, you know. So what also happens is that there can be this personality, this aura, that a Venus square Pluto person is ready for a fight. Like they are already scanning to see when somebody is saying something, and it already like they're searching for somebody to say something or to do something that will make them feel bad or make them feel a sense of attacking their sense of self-worth or self-esteem. little things can be perceived that way, and it can be kind of like, it can make the people around you, Venus square Pluto, to not be sure about what to say, how to approach you, how to handle you. For example, somebody can say that they don't like art, and then you're already perceiving that as that person attacking your sense of self-worth and self-esteem when it's about them and what they don't prefer, and has nothing to do with you. You are still worthy as living a creative, artistic life, and that's an example there to help you guys kind of make sense of this a little bit more. And so the Venus square Pluto person tends to react to that situation, by saying, oh, you don't like art? Yeah, I've been trying to live an artistic and creative life, but I guess I'm just not really that artistic or creative anymore, and it's just not really worthy anymore. And that person is kind of like, okay, well, I'm not sure what I should say next or how I'm going to talk to this Venus square Pluto person anymore. That's kind of how it plays out. And when you have a square, the Venus square Pluto, you tend to kind of already know what is worthy about you, what is valuable about you, which is kind of different from the opposition that they're trying to work it out with the other. You kind of already know what it is that's going to be worthy for you. It's just about sticking to that, solidifying that. And if you can do that, you can go from like this, it's more of like this lack mentality, if you see what I mean. You can go from like a lack mentality to a more abundance mentality. And that in itself brings you a lot of abundance, a lot of prosperity. Like I said, Venus and Pluto represents money. There can be a lot of that coming in for you that you're generating for yourself. It's a very prosperous placement. You can be in a vulnerable, intimate relationship like that you had always desired, coming from a place of trust. There's a real gift here for being able to give to the other, especially in a way that makes another person feel worthy. There's a way in which you can see what other people are worth, their value, their sense of like self-esteem very, very well. And that is something that you are here to do as a Venus square Pluto, is to give that to the other rather than testing to see what another person's going to give to you. Because love is giving. Love is giving, and you can give so much. You're already very solid in knowing what you're worth. Because when you give, when you see other people's values, their self-esteem, their self-worth very clearly, that is what is so sexy about the Venus square Pluto people. It's like sitting with them and like listening to them tell you how much, you are worth. The way they do it is super, super sexy because they see you very clearly in a way that a lot of other people may not be able to see you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Venus Inconjunct Pluto or Venus Semisextile Pluto. That also applies to this. I look at semisextiles and inconjunctions like having very similar themes. When you have Venus Inconjunct Pluto, they're going to be in two signs in the zodiac that have nothing in common actually. So what ends up happening with inconjunction is that the person who has it really, really has a hard time. Like if you have this, you have a really hard time getting a grasp on what you are worth. What is really valuable about yourself? Try to figure this out by, we can say, it's a little bit like selling yourself short to feel worthy, especially when it comes to something along the lines of money or sex or intimacy. And Ginny from Ginny and Georgia, I really feel strongly that she has a Venus Inconjunct Pluto. There's this one scene where she has this boyfriend, Hunter, but she's also sort of like secretly seeing her best friend's brother, Marcus, right? But her official boyfriend is Hunter. And she takes this picture of herself in a bra, like a sexy picture. She sends it to Hunter. And Hunter didn't respond back right away because he was busy doing something. And the moment that he didn't respond back, she immediately felt like insecure and felt like maybe she wasn't sexy enough, maybe she wasn't pretty enough, maybe she wasn't really worth it. Like, why is Hunter not responding back? So she sends that same picture also to Marcus, who is not her boyfriend. They have a thing going on. it's all a secret. And she sends it back to Marcus, and Marcus responds back saying she looks very sexy. And then she starts to feel better, and then they start having a chat, and she starts sending him more pictures and things like that. That is selling yourself short. That is Venus in conjunct Pluto working to see who's going to, what is going to be the right hit, be the right target, if that makes sense. It's like you're taking a bow and arrow and you're blindly pointing at a target, and you have to keep doing it a lot to see where it's going to hit with which target. But the thing about self-worth, and I say this with all Venus-Pluto aspects, that the thing about self-worth is self. It's about yourself, and you have to figure what you're worthy of without needing that validation from others. The Venus in conjunct Pluto people, generally, you may feel that you are the one who is not the aggressor, and you're the one who is receiving you're the victim, shall we say. Like if we look at Ginny, you know, she feels that she's the victim. She feels that Hunter is doing something to her, he's not responding. She feels that Marcus is coming on to her. But you see how she is actually the one who is sort of subtly making things happen to see what she's going to be worth. And she's doing it very subtly. There can be this theme, if you have the Venus in conjunct Pluto, of being in relationships that's perfectly healthy and good for you, like, you know, Ginny and Hunter. They were perfectly okay, and Hunter's doing a lot in that relationship to show her how much she's worth. But it's hard for her to accept it. And so she can kind of like, you know, in her head and her heart, like look for excuses here and there where she can invalidate her self-worth, even though it's very obvious that her boyfriend really values her, really loves her. But it's really hard for her to accept that. She instead is looking around for another partner, another guy, where she really has to put in effort. She really has to do more. You know, she really has to pose a sexy photo, you know, send him a sexy photo so that it can be clear to her that, oh, now I'm feeling worthy. Sometimes when somebody has this, what I see is that they can either be like giving a lot of their sexual energy away to feel worthy, or they're not giving any of their sexual energies away at all, meaning that they would prefer to withhold the sex from a partner, or they are giving too much sex to feel worthy, or withholding sex so that they are feeling worthy. Like, kind of like, you know, I want to make sure that we get married first before we having any kind of sexual intercourse, because that makes them feel worthy. That if their partner can withhold that sexual relating with them until, you know, when things are ripe, or when you're married, or when whatever that might be, that their partner really values them. Or it's going to be the opposite, which is what we see with Ginny from Ginny and Georgia, which is like really trying to make the sex happen so that they can really feel that people want to have sex with them, that makes them feel worthy, and things like that. In either situations, there's something off about the boundaries that you set with regards to your body, your finances, the sexual energy there. In either situation, whether you are withholding the sex or whether there's a lot of sexual activity going on, we can see in both of these situations that you don't have boundaries. Meaning that if you're having too much, you know, if there's a lot of sexual activity going on for the purpose of validating your self-worth rather than the enjoyment of that sexual experience with a partner, then your boundaries have been crossed, and you are the one that have crossed your own boundaries. And in the other case, where there's the withholding there, you are penetrating over the other person's boundaries, and you're also somehow like, kind of like stepping over your own boundaries as well, because maybe you're really attracted to someone, and you know, your hormones are going, and you really want to have that sexual experience with a lover, but still you're not doing it, and that is somehow invalidating, stepping over your own boundaries. The there's a really, really subtle but deep unconscious feeling that if you could control through these various different means of either withholding sex or making a lot of, or having a lot of sex, that you hold the power. This is very subtle, and the Venus in conjunct Pluto person, if you're watching this or if somebody tells this to you, in conjunct or semisextile, you may say, no, that's not true. But if you really dig into your psychology, there's something there. The transformation of the Venus in conjunct or semisextile to Pluto means to completely let go of the old ways of relating. And so if you look at the example of Ginny, right? If she wants to change, she has to completely destroy this way of relating to other people that she continuously establishes, because she could be in another relationship that's not Hunter, that's not Marcus, and she can still be in the same pattern, right? So she has to destroy this pattern that has been going on. And the only way that she's going to be able to do that is to take her attention back to herself, to know that the worth that you need to have with regards to your self-worth and self-love does not have to be dependent on anybody else except for yourself. That when you are relating to the other, if your sense of self-worth is solid, you are giving, you are loving. You are not looking to get that proven in a relationship. And you have to be able to be very honest with this in conjunction, very honest in a relationship with your partner. And speak up and say your fears, your insecurity. That's what leads to intimacy. Intimacy is about having the harder conversations that needs to be had in a relationship, but it needs to happen. And you can be the master of intimacy in a relationship, but that's going to come from honesty. That's going to come from transformation of the old ways of relating into a trusting, loving, loyal relationship. And you can have all of that you've ever desired through your transformation. And yes, like I said, like when you have the in conjunction, it can be kind of hard, or the semisextile, to see what you're worth. There may not be one or two things that you can really pinpoint, like some of the other aspects. Just know that yourself, just you, that there's nobody else like you, because you are just you. That you have to value that you have to see that you're worthy just from being yourself. Okay, so last but not least, I'm going to touch a little bit on the Venus trine and sextile Pluto, because there's going to be some questions there. Well, what about the trine and what about the sextile? So Venus trine and sextile Pluto is very similar to the conjunction. So you can go back and watch the Venus conjunct Pluto and see what that's all about. But the trine and the sextile brings ease. There's not a lot of tension or dynamism involved there. So it's either going to be that the themes of the Venus conjunct Pluto, which means that the possessiveness, the drama, the jealousy, the merging of souls, the attachment that you want in a relationship so that you can feel worthy and validate your self-worth, that can either be very easy, meaning that it's hard to feel like you have to change it. It's hard to feel like you have to stop being jealous and possessive. It's hard to feel like, hey, I gotta stop this drama in a relationship. It's hard to feel like I gotta know my self-worth and let go of the need to validate my self-worth through a relationship. That can be like something that just flows, and you may not feel like, well, there's not much that I have to change about this part of myself. So what can happen with the Venus trine and sextile Pluto is that you can be in unhealthy relationships and have these unhealthy patterns going for a cycle repeated and happening again until you get hit with like a transit, a hard Pluto transit, let's say Pluto squaring that Venus, or a Pluto coming to oppose that Venus, or in conjunct that Venus, or any other transits that may come in, and gives you that click, that awakening to say, now I'm getting into something creative for myself. That there's a push for you to start, you know, maybe it's doing art, maybe it's writing something, maybe it's changing the way that you dress, or buying your house, decorating your house, something that brings you self-worth, and you realize that, yeah, this is what I'm worthy of. And then it becomes easy to have the good stuff of Venus conjunct Pluto. It becomes easy to see that you're sexy, that you're worthy, how attractive and magnetic you are, and that you can just give in a relationship, that you can be have the good intensity, not the dramatic intensity, but the good kind of intensity where you become understanding of your partner. You can see all of their desires, and you're there to cater to their desires in a healthy way. That just becomes much easier, okay? So I hope that's making sense as with regards to how the trine and the sextile is going to play out in the chart. Okay guys, I feel like that was a lot today. If you have any Venus Pluto aspects in your chart, do comment below what aspect it is, what has been your experience with it, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. If you already subscribed, then thank you very much for coming along. I do birth chart readings, a combination of astrology, human design, the gene keys. All of that is on my website. You can check that out. And yes, see you soon, beautiful souls. Bye.